According to Henderson's Dictionary of Biology, the scientific method is defined as the rational formulation of hypotheses, collection of data, and testing of hypotheses against observations or experimental results that is the basis of the scientific approach to explaining natural phenomena. So, what exactly does this all mean? The scientific method is a series of steps that allow us to reach a conclusion by starting with an observation and formulating a hypothesis. In order to test the hypothesis, investigation must be performed to design an experiment. Once the design has been completed, the experiment will be done to test the proposed hypothesis. The data generated from the experiment is then analyzed, and conclusions can be formed. To give a better idea of the scientific method in action, a study by Hintati-Sundberg et al. Titled COVID-19 Lockdown Reveals Tourists as Seabird Guardians will be dissected to give a better idea to the flow of the scientific method and how an observation can lead to a conclusion. The lockdown orders created by the COVID-19 pandemic produced a novel event where the role that human presence has on ecosystems could be investigated. An island in the Baltic Sea, known as Stora Karlsö, Sweden, is home to a large population of common murres, and prior to 2020, a small amount of sea eagles would visit the island during their breeding seasons of May to June. Previous findings have shown that sea eagles have become threats to these seabirds, which are birds that live in marine environments, with a supposed potential to even eliminate entire populations of them. Alongside the seabird population on the island, tourism has flourished as people have flocked to view these seabirds in their natural habitat. Because of the unique situation created by the COVID-19 lockdowns, tourism has ceased abruptly. If humans are absent from Stora Karlsö, then behavior of sea eagles visiting the island will be affected and reflect in the behavior and breeding success of the cliff-breeding common murres. The two species being investigated were sea eagles and common murres on the island of Stora Karlsö in the Baltic Sea. Starting March 29, 2020, tourism to the island ceased, which coincided with the entire 2020 tourism season. CCTV cameras were used to study how sea eagles affected around 40 breeding pairs of common murres, comparing footage from 2019 with footage from 2020 during the months of May to June. Observations of white-tailed eagles on Stora Karlsö was obtained from a biodiversity database to find the average number of eagles visiting the island per year. Common murre breeding data was retrieved over the years from 2010 to 2020. Breeding status for 2020 was retrieved by video recording and daily observations by researchers during the months of June to July. Data from video recordings and observations are what are known as qualitative data, which is data that is visually descriptive rather than numerical. In this study, disturbances are defined as an event where all seabirds left the breeding ledges. The amount of time that it took for at least 85% of the disturbed birds to return was also recorded alongside these disturbance events. Because of the canceling of tourist traffic, human presence decreased by 92% in comparison to the 2017 to 2019 tourist seasons. So here we have this graph created by the researchers showing the amount of humans per day in the years 2017 to 2020 in the months of May to June. The months of May are in light gray bars and the months of June are in dark gray bars. And so we can see the amount of humans per day from 2017 to 2019 remain at a relatively constant amount, whereas in 2020, the amount of humans per day dramatically decreases. Sea eagle behavior changed dramatically, with an increase of 760% visitations to the island, causing great disturbances of the murres. Additionally, it was the first time that sea eagles were observed attacking the murres. Although no murres were observed to be caught by an eagle, the increase in disturbances led to a greater time spent away from their eggs and resulted in predation by other birds. Quantitative data is the type of data that can be expressed numerically. Based on the qualitative data from the video footage, quantitative data was formed to create this graph for better visualization of the increase in disturbances. So the light gray bar corresponds to the year of 2019 and the red bar corresponds to the year of 2020, and it's measuring the amount of disturbances per day of the common murres recorded as minutes per day. and we can see a dramatic increase in the amount of disturbances. We also see a decrease in the number of breeding attempts compared to previous years. So in here we have the year of 2020, and we have the years of 2010 to 2019, all having a higher amount of breeding attempts compared to the year of 2020. And concurrently, there is a lower hatching success that was recorded by the researchers. Feeding activity was also monitored and found to have no changes between 2019 and 2020. The reason for comparing the feeding activity between the years of 2019 to 2020 was to determine if changes in MERP breeding success was due to a top-down or a bottom-up effect. A top-down effect is where the top consumer controls the food chain, and a bottom-up effect is where the primary producers control the food chain. Because of the feeding activity of the MERS hadn't changed between 2019 to 2020, it's concluded that a top-down effect is at play because of the increase in sea eagle presence caused by the absence of tourists due to the COVID-19 lockdowns. The disturbances by sea eagles to MERS were substantial enough to result in less MER offspring than necessary for long-term stability of the population. So, what does this all mean? This could mean that if the observed behavior of sea eagles and MERS don't change, then the MER population on Stora Karlsö may cease to exist. How will the return of tourists affect the MER population once tourism reopens on the island? Has the human absence to the island caused a permanent shift in the sea eagle behavior? These are questions that this study aims to answer in the future. Based on the data from these future studies, tourists might be used as a mechanism for seabird protection, known as seabird guardians, as their presence keeps the sea eagle disturbances at low enough numbers to favor seabird breeding. This paper epitomizes the scientific method at play. Starting with an observation, then formulating a hypothesis, conducting investigation to test the hypothesis, performing the experiment, and then evaluating, forming conclusions, and finding future directions. The scientific method is the basis of the ever-changing and dynamic world of scientific research. By following the steps of the process, scientists can start with one observation and lead to a gain of new information and questions to investigate. From this process, we can learn about the world we live in, which furthers our knowledge about ourselves.